Title, she said. If you don't like my friend's rude jokes, you can just pay and leave. I said, thanks for the option. Then stood up, took my car keys, and walked out of the restaurant. She thought I was joking until her friends' laughter died when they realized I had just paid for me meal only. Section 1. The man who gave everything I gave everything to my wife and still ended up a stranger in my own home. I had always believed that love was built, not given, earned through loyalty, quiet sacrifice, and years of showing up when it mattered. That belief had carried me through 14 years with Haley. Through late nights on construction sites and overtime shifts I took just to buy her something she casually mentioned wanting. I thought I was building something solid with her, something our son Ryan could grow up inside without ever having to question its shape. But now, even when we were all in the same room, it felt like I was watching my family from behind a pane of soundproof glass. Haley used to greet me at the door with a kiss and questions about my day. Lately, she barely looked up from her phone. Her words turned sharp, her smile mechanical. I told myself it was stress, the economy, my recent injury, her gym schedule. But then came the silences. Not peaceful ones, just cold, stretched thin, like we were holding our breath around each other. Then, one night over dinner, Ryan looked at me and said, "Mom laughs more when Chase is around than when you are." I froze, fork midair. I could not taste anything after that. My hands turned cold, my stomach twisted, because in that one sentence, my son had said what I had been too afraid to admit. Chase. The name echoed louder than it should have. I had seen it once before, on her phone, a casual message about adjusting form or new gym hours. I had brushed it off, but now it dug into my chest like glass. That same week, Haley started wearing perfume I did not recognize, a strange, clean scent that clung to her skin like a second story she was not telling me. There were days she came home glowing, laughing at dry jokes over texts she would not show me, saying she was sore from lifting. When I had once known every bruise on her body because I had kissed them all, I still woke up early to pack her protein, shakes and left notes in her gym bag, but the smile she returned no longer reached her eyes. And every time she turned away from me, I could feel her taking another piece of the life we built and giving it to someone else. Section 2. The distance. I could not ignore it was the way she held her phone a little tighter when I walked into the room, the way her screen dimmed too quickly. Conversations disappearing mid-sentence like ghosts fleeing sunlight that finally made me stop pretending. I had spent months convincing myself that this was a phase, that Haley was tired or stressed or simply drifting just like all along. Marriages did at some point, but there was a new language in the way she existed now, one I no longer understood. She left the house in leggings and full makeup at 7 in the morning, claiming her HIIT classes were non-negotiable, but she returned hours later, glowing in ways I had not seen in years, with a tension in her muscles and a bite in her voice that made our home feel like enemy ground. I began to notice the silence between us stretch into something hostile, her eyes always flickering toward the door like she was waiting for someone better to walk through it. One evening, I sat across from her while Ryan worked on a school project beside us. I reached for her hand, and she recoiled like I was a stranger. She apologized, mumbled something about being sore from squats. But there was a tremor in her voice, and it was not pain from training, it was guilt she was not ready to admit. That night, as she slept beside me with her back turned, I lay awake, watching the ceiling and realizing I was no longer part of her world. The space between us was not just emotional, it had become a wall. I remembered when she used to talk about her dreams, how she once told me that building a family with me was all she ever wanted. Now her dreams came in texts she smiled at privately, in plans made without me, in laughter she saved for someone else. I felt the shift so clearly I could not pretend anymore. Not when Ryan started asking if I was okay. Not when the house that once held love now echoed like a cage. I tried one last time to reach her, suggesting a weekend getaway, just the two of us, to reset. She looked at me like I had suggested something absurd. "We cannot afford a break," she said flatly. "Besides, Chase is training me for a fitness show. I cannot miss a week." It was the first time she said his name out loud, and it landed like a slap. Chase, no longer just a whisper in my suspicions. Now he lived in her schedule, her priorities, her mouth. I nodded quietly and stepped back, not out of weakness, but because I needed space to see clearly. And what I saw, finally, was the truth I had been too loyal to face. She had already left, she just had not packed yet. Section 3. The moment I knew. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The kind of ordinary day that never warns you it is about to destroy something permanent. And I had come home early from physical therapy because the doctor said I was healing slower than expected and needed more rest. The house was too quiet when I walked in. No music, no television, just the hum of the fridge and the distant sound of Ryan's pencil scratching across his math worksheet. He looked up and smiled like always, but there was something guarded in his eyes, something that made my chest tighten before he even spoke. I asked where his mother was, and he hesitated, chewing the inside of his cheek the way he did when he was nervous. "She is in her room," but she was with someone before you came. They were laughing. I froze. Who? I asked, already knowing the answer. The gym man, he said quietly. Chase. He hugged her and kissed her neck. I saw it from the hallway. She told him to leave when she heard your truck. My vision tunneled. I nodded slowly and thanked him, then walked to our bedroom. But it was already empty. No Chase, no trace of him. Just a faint scent of expensive cologne and the open window she never opened. Haley was downstairs in the kitchen, acting like nothing had happened, humming while chopping vegetables, like this was any other evening. I stood there in the doorway, staring at her back, and something in me cracked, not loudly, not violently, but in a quiet, final way that I could feel, deep in my bones. That was the moment I knew she had not just betrayed our marriage, she had brought that betrayal into our son's world, into his eyes, into the foundation of everything I had tried to protect. And still, I said nothing. I sat down, listened to her tell a story about her friend's birthday brunch, smiled when appropriate, even washed the dishes afterward. But that night, after they both went to bed, I sat alone at the dining table and began writing down everything. Dates, receipts, schedules, things I had ignored, things I now saw clearly. I logged into our shared calendar and found appointments she had hidden under fake names, gym sessions that always overlapped with Chase's schedule. I checked our home camera logs and noticed gaps, times when the footage had been deleted. She was careful, but not enough. I knew, with icy certainty, that this was not just about another man. This was about who she had become. The woman I had married would have cried at the thought of hurting Ryan. This woman had let him witness her affair. And in that moment, I stopped being her husband. I became the man who would end this with dignity, strategy, and silence. Section 4. The divorce she did not see coming. It took me 3 weeks to gather everything I needed. And during those 3 weeks, I lived beside Haley like a man already gone. Smiling when she smiled, nodding when she talked about Chase like he was just a trainer and not the man she had led into our home behind my back, and tucking Ryan into bed each night, like nothing in his world had changed, because I refused to let her chaos become his burden. I visited a lawyer quietly, bringing printed messages, time-stamped call logs, and screenshots from our home security app that she thought she had wiped clean. I had Chase's car plate number from the front-facing camera and receipts she left carelessly in the laundry basket, things she thought I never noticed because I had always played the quiet one. But quiet does not mean blind. My attorney, a woman named Melissa, went over the files with the kind of calm that told me she had seen this before. And when she leaned back and said, "Andrew, you have enough here to take full custody and walk away with the house," I did not feel joy. I felt grief. Not for losing Haley, but for losing the version of her I had once believed in. The real blow came on our anniversary. A dinner she planned weeks ahead and invited all her family and close friends to some from out of town. Even her sister, who never made time for anyone. She asked me to wear the blue shirt she liked. The one, she said, brought out my eyes. And I did. I shaved, held the door open for her, and smiled like a husband in love. The restaurant was dim, warm, full of laughter and wine. I let her toast first. Let her make her little speech about love and endurance and how every marriage has seasons. And I waited until the dessert was served, when all eyes were still soft and warm. Then I stood up and pulled out the envelope I had been carrying inside my coat the entire evening. The silence was immediate. I looked at Haley, who still had a bite of cake in her mouth, and said, "You can stop pretending now. I know about Chase, and I am done." I placed the divorce papers on the table in front of her and watched the color drain from her face as the photos spilled out behind them, screenshots, schedules, surveillance times. Her father asked what this was, and I told him, calmly, with no anger in my voice. Her mother began crying. Her sister stared at the table like she could not believe it, like she had only just realized what her sister had become. Haley said nothing. She just sat frozen, her fork still in her hand, while Ryan, who was not there, was at home safe with my sister, waiting for a father who had just made the hardest decision of his life. I did not raise my voice. I did not stay for reactions. I walked out of the restaurant, took a cab home, and began moving forward, not as a man scorned, but as a man who had finished writing the final chapter in a book that had stopped being beautiful years ago. Section 5. Her breakdown. My beginning. The aftermath was quieter than I expected, not because there was no chaos, but because I chose not to meet it with noise. Haley blew up my phone the next morning with messages that swung wildly from denial to begging to fury. Her voice notes coming through in the early hours filled with trembling whispers of "Andrew, please, and you do not understand what I was going through," as if any of it could rewrite what she had done, as if loneliness gave her the right to destroy the home we built, brick by brick, with my bare hands and tired bones. She showed up at the house 2 days later, still dressed in what looked like last night's outfit, mascara smudged, holding a gift bag like a peace offering. I did not let her in. I told her through the door that Ryan was not ready to see her, and truthfully, neither was I. She stood there for a long time, just breathing heavy, trying to find a crack in my calm, but I had nothing left to give. She broke down fully the day the court awarded me full custody. Her lawyer tried to spin it like she had just made a mistake, a lapse in judgment, but the judge read through every file I presented, every message between her and Chase, including the one where she told him she was only sticking around long enough to secure alimony. That one hit harder than she thought it would. When the gavel fell, Haley cried in the hallway outside the courtroom like someone had died, and maybe someone had the version of her that she pretended to be for over a decade. I walked past her without a word, my lawyer beside me, papers in hand, and I did not look back. At home, I started rearranging things, not just furniture, but life. I put Ryan in a new school, closer to my job, repainted his room, the color he liked, and we began new routines: pancakes on Sundays, bike rides on quiet evenings, and movie nights where we never picked anything sad. My beginning was not loud or triumphant. It was made of small, steady wins, like the first time Ryan asked if we could invite my sister over for dinner, or when he said he liked the house better when it was just us, because it felt like home again. Haley called less and less, and when she did, it was always with that slight tremble in her voice, like she still expected the old Andrew to pick up and fix everything. But that man was gone. I was not here to fix her anymore. I was here to raise my son, rebuild my life, and protect the peace I had earned the hard way through silence, patience, and finally, through letting go. Section 6. Peace does not ask permission. I used to think closure came with answers, with apologies, with someone finally admitting they were wrong and meaning it, but I learned that peace is not something you wait for or ask permission to feel. It is something you choose. When you are tired of carrying the weight of someone else's lies, months passed, seasons shifted, and Haley's voice grew more distant until it became just another noise I no longer needed to respond. Touche tried to come back once, showing up outside Ryan's school with tears and flowers, saying Chase had left her, that she missed her family, that she had changed. But I did not let her confuse Ryan again. Not after all he had seen and heard and endured in silence. He stood beside me that day, not behind me, not unsure, just quiet and still, like I had been when everything first fell apart. And I realized then how much strength we both had found in each other. I did not need revenge. I did not need to scream. I had everything I needed: the truth, the proof, and the one person who had always mattered most to me, choosing me back without being asked. We moved out of that old house a few weeks later, not to escape, but to start fresh somewhere with no echoes of slammed doors or fake apologies. I opened a small woodworking business, something I had always wanted to do but never had the time or peace of mind to start. And Ryan helped after school, sanding pieces or handing me tools, asking questions about each thing we built like it mattered, and it did. I do not think about Haley much anymore. When I do, it is like looking at a photo I do not remember posing, for blurry, detached, someone else's life. I still see the pain in the rear view sometimes, but it no longer rides in the front seat. I gave everything to my wife and still ended up a stranger in my own home, but I walked away, not as a victim, not even as a survivor, but as a man who remembered his worth before it was too late. Peace, it turns out, does not wait for permission. It arrives the moment you stop asking broken people to love you whole. Asterisk, asterisk. Thank you for being a part of this story with me. If it moved you, please give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to Narrative Stories. I've noticed many of you who enjoy these stories aren't subscribed yet. By subscribing, you're not just following a channel, you're becoming part of a community that values deep, meaningful storytelling. Let's continue exploring these heartfelt journeys together. Don't forget to click the notification bell and give me your valuable suggestions about the video in the comment, so you won't miss our next story. Asterisk.